All right, I'm going to try something that I've never tried before. Apple's released iOS 8 recently, and they've got a Keynote app on there. So I'm going to try and control my slides using this app, which I've never used before. Technically speaking, it's a live demo. So I work for a company called LifeX, and we produce bulbs like this. And you can control these bulbs from one of these. So let's change it to white. There you go. Let's go over here. There you go. So it comes in a variety of colors. So, green if you want it to be green when it's on, orange, red, purple, whatever you want. You can buy them for yourself if you want them at lifex.co. That's the company I work for, but I'm not going to be talking about that today. What I'm going to be talking about, I work for them, so I'm kind of obliged to speak about them at least, like give them a passing mention. I just need to switch back to Keynote. I think, how do you work this thing? What are we doing? Anyway, not to brag or anything, but I'm number 21 on Rails contributors. And I make a lot of commits that are just like one-word changes and documentations. That's how I got to be there. So I'm not going to talk about that either. So today I'm talking about multi-tenancy with Rails. And tilt that up a bit more so I can see it. So multi-tenancy with Rails, it's really good because I get 1 hour and 10 minutes to speak to you because there's no lightning talks today. So I'm going to talk really slowly because I've only planned to talk for 40 minutes. Being able to talk for 1 hour and 10 minutes makes me really excited. This is my excited face from last night. And this is my excited face now. So can anyone tell me what multi-tenancy is? Yes? Exactly. Running multiple customers on the same app, but making them look like they're separate apps. So an example of this could almost be Facebook, but it's not really. An example could be Tumblr. So Tumblr, you have your own blog posts on Tumblr. Again, it's not really. A better example of it would be GitHub. So GitHub, it's all the same app and it's all collaborative. But on GitHub, what you have is an organization, such as Spree. And underneath that organization, you have the organization is right there. Then you have a set of teams, and those teams have access to specific repositories. So on GitHub, you have the separation. Just like you have users, which have, that's a user. Don't know why I did the arrow. And then you have a list of repos for that user, and those repos have collaborators. So you have that multi-tenant set up on GitHub, which is really, really handy. Another great feature of GitHub is its plans, and I'll get back to this towards the end of my talk. But I love being able to say, okay, I'm going to sign up to GitHub and have a free trial. Or I want some private repositories, I want just a group of them, I'm going to pay them $7 a month for their service. It's really good. So I'm going to talk about this new social network that I think you guys really should get on. This is my, I've been thinking about this for a very, very, very long time. And I pitched it to some people and they've been pretty much on board. They want to start investing, but I just don't have the time to start working on this thing because I'm writing books, I have a job, I have a wife. So I just don't have time. Anyway, I think we need to get a team together to start working on this next big idea. The big idea is a site called Dog Life. It's like Facebook, but for dogs. So we're going to build Dog Life, and this is how you're going to build it. Multi-tenancy with Rails. So, okay, you know what multi-tenancy is, but you don't know what multi-tenancy with Rails is. What are you going to do about it? Okay, you're going to go to Google, just like Schneems does. And you're going to find this Ruby Toolbox stuff, and you're going to go to the multi-tenancy category, and you're going to find a list of gems there. And it lists 9 gems. It lists apartment, Milia, access tenant, multi-tenant, access restricted subdomain, active record connections, white label, multi-tenant PG, and multi-tenant MySQL. Now, my criteria for accepting one of these gems, there's 3 pieces to that criteria. Is it well documented, which is open source. For open source libraries, it kind of varies. There's sometimes really great documentation, and there's sometimes no documentation. And even in the big open source projects like Rails, when they rewrote the router for Rails 3, they didn't document it at all. So I documented it. And then they didn't document the asset pipeline, so I documented it. I will not document your libraries, I'm sorry. So Access Tenant was one of the gems on that list that I recognized, and it ticks the box pretty much for well documented. It has good, clear usage instructions. It's pretty much well maintained. It has 140 commits, not that too high. Good group of, can't get my words out today. Good group of contributors and a low issue count, and it has CI on Travis, which is currently passing. But its code is a little kind of leaking abstractions. It needs some help from Nick. It has this current tenant method defined in it. And I'm like, what is this thing? Because I see this called everywhere. I see it called in the models, and I see it called in the controllers. I'm like, what's this doing? So I go and find this request store gem, and it turns out that it's using thread.current. Now, thread.current acts as like a global variable. If you've ever done PHP, you know what global variables are. And I think that we stopped using global variables when we stopped using PHP, so I think that we shouldn't use thread current when we're using Ruby, because it's a leaky abstraction. So the next gem on that list, so that's Access Tenant. We can't use Access Tenant because it uses thread.current, and I'm morally opposed to that. So the next gem on that list is Apartment. Now Apartment, I'm going to stop walking in front of the projector probably. Apartment ticks all those boxes. It's well documented, it's well maintained, and has pretty clean code. And in that documentation, it mentions this thing called Postgres schemas. Who knows what those are? Anyone? One person. 2 people. 3 people. Okay, this is good. So you're gonna use these things to build dog life, because you Google for what they are, you don't know what they are, so you Google for them, and it says a database contains one or more named schemas which will in turn contain tables. There are several reasons why one might want to use schemas: to allow many users to use one database without interfering with each other. That sounds pretty much like multi-tenancy, doesn't it? To allow many users to use one database without interfering with each other. That's multi-tenancy. So I got really, really, really excited about this. I'm like, this is the thing. This is what's going to revolutionize multi-tenancy, is Postgres schemas. How come no one's ever figured this out before? There's reasons. Anyway, schemas, they work by using a search path. So the default search path in Postgres is your currently logged in user, and then the public schema. And the way that works is that if you've got a table in the public schema called things, and you find all the things, and that table doesn't exist in the user schema, it'll bypass the user schema and then go to the public schema and find it there. But if the table exists inside of the user schema, it'll find the table in the user schema, get the records from that, and completely ignore the public schema. So this way, you can have your tenants existing in schemas instead of all grouped together in the public schema. So one schema per tenant. So you have this separation. So you have, we have Garçon, it's Fluffy, we have Garçon, and we have Brutus, all separated in their own schemas, completely separate. So that's really great. And Apartment has some really, really great helpers for this stuff. You call apartment tenant create, and it will create a schema with all the tables in it. Next, you want to get this stuff rolling in your application. So you want to start growing out the application. The first thing you want to do is you want to create a scoped controller that all the accounts controller inherit from. So we've got scoped controller, and we want to switch, when we're going to a subdomain, we want to switch into the current tenant. So when we go to Garçon's page, we should only see Garçon's things. And if we go to Fluffy's page, we should only see Fluffy's things. The next thing we want is a method to define the current account. That way then we can easily find out who we're getting the posts for. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second because I've got something that should keep you awake. So I'm going to turn this off for 1 second. So, there are 5 light bulbs on stage, 4 in those boxes, 1 up there. From this point forward, there are 3 mistakes in my presentation. In just the slides. There's about 50 more slides, 3 mistakes. If you find a mistake in a slide, put your hand up, turn on your microphone, and tell me what the mistake is. If you guess correctly, I'll give you a bulb. If you guess incorrectly, you get a t-shirt. Win-win. So the next thing we want to do is to create an account with a schema, because you don't want to call account.create and then call apartment tenant create with the schema name. So you combine it into this model method, and then there's nothing left to do. You just keep building your site, and it works, and it works, and it's great. And you keep going, and then you end up deploying it. So you're like, okay, I'm going to deploy this thing to Heroku, because Heroku, we all love Heroku, don't we? So you're like, okay, how do I deploy this to Heroku? I've got schemas. So schemas are kind of, does Heroku have any documentation that mentions schemas? Yes, it does. It has this yellow warning box on its Postgres page. And it says the most common use case for using multiple schemas in a database is building a software as a service application, like DogLife, wherein each customer has their own schema. While this technique seems compelling, we strongly recommend against it, as it has caused numerous cases of operational problems. For instance, even a moderate number of schemas, greater than 50, can severely impact the performance of Heroku's database snapshot tools, PG backups. That's a lot of words to just say what this graph explains. Your daily backups are going to take longer than a day to complete. And that's going to be bad for business. So Postgres is great. That's the TLDR of the first half of my talk there. So Postgres is really, really good. But if you're trying to use Postgres for what it's not built for, you're going to have a bad time. That's a barbecue in a pool. So we can't use schemas. We're going to give up on that whole idea. We're going to throw out the apartment gem and probably just not use it. So what are we going to do instead? Okay, well, we'll start from scratch. My phone keeps flipping around. This is what I meant about the live demo stuff. So we're going to start from scratch. We're going to have account post controller, and we're just going to find all the posts in the database. We don't have any schemas anymore, so we're going to find all the posts. And this is a problem because all the dogs posts are going to be all showing at the same time, and we don't want that. So in order to write this feature, what are we going to do first? We're going to test all the time, aren't we? We're going to test all the time. Right? Testing? Everyone's testing? We're on board with that? Yep? Yeah? Good, good. So I got a question. Are you testing right now? Anyone typing? No? You're not testing. Why not? Man, it makes me so sad. So you're going to test all the time, because otherwise your code base is going to end up like this. So we're going to write this feature, and it's going to be fairly simple. We're going to navigate to Fluffy's subdomain, and so the current account's going to be Fluffy's account. And then we go to see Fluffy's posts, we can see only Fluffy's posts. So when we run our test is going to fail. We're expected to only see account A's posts, so we're only expecting to see Fluffy's posts, but we see Garçon's and Brutus's posts as well. And the reason why that's happening is because our controller fetches all the posts from the database, but really it should be scoping them to just the right thing. And previously for that, we used apartment, but we're not using apartment now. And I looked around for other solutions and nothing really fit, so I did what everyone else does and invoked not invented here syndrome and wrote it myself. And this gem is called Hauser, and all you do is you insert a piece of middleware, you tell it your account, and it will find by subdomain automatically, and it will return this Hauser object. This Hauser object is the account that matches the current subdomain. Then you can implement it just like you implemented it when you had apartment. So you have a scoped controller which defines the current account method, you redefine index to say current account posts, and then you test passes. That's pretty great. And then you are very happy. That's you with sunglasses, looking really cool. Now we're going to do a little bit more of an advanced feature. So we're going to go to Fluffy's albums, and then we want to navigate to one particular album for Fluffy, and we should only see the pictures from that album. And that album should only be Fluffy's album. So the first thing we do is that when we're a guest on Account A subdomain, we should only see Account A's albums. But we see everyone's albums. And why? Well, because we've got this in our controller. We're saying fetch all the albums across our entire database. So we change that over to say account scoped controller, def index, albums, current account albums. And then that part works, which is really cool. The next thing we want to say is when we're a guest on Account A subdomain viewing an album, we want to show only pictures from the album. And again, we expected to not see Account B's pictures, but we did anyway. So we have pictures controller and same deal. So we changed that. And now we're inheriting from account scoped controller. We're defining album. So we've got the album instance variable there. And getting the pictures out of it. And we define the album instance variable in find album. Where? Yes, you're right. I'm missing a before filter. Congratulations. Yes, that's it. I don't know where I'm going to give away the other two bulbs, probably for questions afterwards, so that might be a safer bet. Yes? Exactly. There's actually 2 mistakes in this slide. Congratulations. So, even though we've made the mistakes in this slide, there's no before filter, which there should be, and so the before filter is in my code, which I've tested, and that test is passing. So it's working, and everyone's happy. You go to fluffy.doglife.com, you go to Fluffy's albums, you go to Fluffy's birthday pictures, and you can see it. But the code is obviously wrong, and see I've added the before filter now, hey? But the code is wrong, because when you navigate to Garcon's page, you can, if you enter the right album ID, you can actually see Fluffy's albums instead. So my second lesson is regression test all the time. If you ever encounter a bug in your application, I cannot overstate the value of regression testing. Because I've had code that I've not regression tested, and a client's come to me for the first time, and he said the code's broken, and I've gone, I've deployed a fix. And then 2 weeks later, he says it's not fixed. I'm like, but I fixed it. And he's like, no, you didn't. So you regression test. And that way then, if it gets unfixed, you can find out when it got unfixed. So we write a regression test. We fix our code. We are now scoping correctly. Current account albums find, which is great. And now we're going to ship it. We're done. So we've got posts and albums, and now we're going to have a beta, have invite only and that kind of thing. So the next big thing that we want to work on is subscriptions. And I did say I'd get back to subscriptions at the beginning of this talk, where GitHub has plans. Who here has ever written their own subscriptions code? 1, 2, that's it. Okay, then good. We've got some really smart people here. So our third feature is that we want to go to the sign up page when we sign up for an account. Something happens, and so the user goes to the sign up page, something happens, and then we, as the Dog Life creators, get money. Does anyone know who said this? Exactly. Nobody ever. Personally, I've tried writing subscriptions code before, and it's ended up badly because people cancel in the middle of the month, or there's a trial period, or their card doesn't work, or they insufficient funds, and it's just this major headache. So I like offshoring that stuff to my great friends at PayPal. They're really, really awesome. Except when they're not, which is all the time. If you look up PayPal recurring billing, you see this page. Where's my developer documentation? Oh, right up there, there's a little tab. See that? It says developers. And that might link, I don't know where that goes. I've not been brave enough to click on it. Every time I go to PayPal's documentation, so I tried implementing Express Checkout, completely unrelated to this. I tried implementing Express Checkout once, and it said, open this PDF to learn about Express Checkout. So I opened it, and it had a link in there, and it said, the document has now been moved. So I clicked the link, and it takes me to another PDF document. You know what that one says? This document has now been moved. I click that link. You know what that happens? I get this 86-page PDF with all XML details about Express Checkout on PayPal. So ever since then, I've decided that PayPal is just not for me, and I like using Stripe now instead. Because when you look up Stripe recurring billing, you get this page. And it's really simple. It says, okay, subscription billing, this is how you create a plan, this is how you subscribe a customer to the plan. Very, very easy. In fact, the first couple of words on that page says Stripe makes recurring and subscription-based billing easy. That's sold me. That's got me. I'm doing this. This is great. Stripe's documentation is also really easy. This is how you create a plan. This is the object you get back. In fact, all the code to create a plan and a customer and subscribe that customer to the plan fits on one slide. That's amazing. They've simplified their API to fit on one single slide. So I've gone over back to PayPal, my old friend PayPal, and I've looked up, they do actually have a Ruby API, and it looks like this. So you create an API instance variable, PayPal SDK merchant API.new, and then you call this method which has 5 words in it. Build, create, recurring payments profile. Build, create, recurring payments profile. And then the first thing you pass to it is another word. Another 7 words. Create recurring payments profile request details. Create recurring payments profile request details. Say that 10 times fast and you can get a light bulb, but don't say it right now. Really, this symbol barely fits on the slide. That's my default size in Keynote, and it barely fits on the slide. And I've tried using PayPal's API. I really have tried to love it, but it really, really depresses me. And it shouldn't be that hard. It should be that you should just provide an API that's fairly simple, because as developers, you want people to be using your stuff, and to make people use your stuff, you want to make it easy. So really, your thing should be that my company makes your life easy. PayPal does not believe in this motto. Stripe believes in this motto. So, for feature 3, the user signs up, we're going to use Stripe. And that, my friends, is 5 o'clock, which is when I was originally meant to end, and I'm still going to end. So, if you like this talk, please email me. If you hated this talk, please email me. If you have any questions, please email me. And one more thing. I have a book, which is this talk in book form. It's called Multitenancy with Rails, and you can get it for a special discounted rate of $10 if you use that discount code. $10 off. So Multitenancy with Rails. You go to leanpub.com, Multitenancy Rails, coupon code, Rails specific. That's my talk. Thank you.